Alright, so in the previous lesson, we finished drawing a character here based on our second shape. Now, if I go ahead and zoom in here, I went ahead and cleaned him up just a little bit in between lessons and made a few modifications. I changed his nose up just a little bit, and I also lassoed up his entire body here and made it narrower just by using the transform controls and holding down the Alt key and repositioning that, just so he appears to be a little bit thinner, if you will, a little more fragile. So I'm going to come in here now at this point, and I'm going to go ahead and bring in my color overlay adjustment layer, and we're going to come in here and start refining this line work. Let me go ahead and hide those layers here. And we'll come up and grab one of our brushes here and just make some adjustments to it. Let's go ahead and grab the paintbrush and come over here to brushes, and let's just turn off transfer, and we'll come up to the brush tip and pinch that in just a little bit here, rotating it around just so we get a slight thick and thin. Now I'm going to definitely need a smaller brush than that, so we're going to go down to about 4 pixels or so, and we're just going to begin refining this line work much in the same way we did with this first guy. So I'm going to come in here and let's just go ahead and pick an area to start on, and I never like to start on a big curve. But remember, we're going to try to keep our brush strokes really nice and fluid, just making sure that we have clean, crisp lines here. Now for these eyebrows, I'm going to come in kind of with a series of smaller lines. Depends on how much detail you really want to get. So feel free to come in with as many little lines as you want to create sort of that textured, jagged look of a hairy eyebrow. It really boils down to how you want the character to look, how much detail you want in the character. So I'm going to come in here and detail that little ear out. That we actually left that out in the last lesson, so I went ahead and did that in between lessons. And we'll go ahead and detail this ear out as well. Alright, so I want to come in here and give him a little bit of a boxy shape, but almost, if you're familiar with how people age, people start to sag when they get older. Things just start to be affected more by gravity. So maybe his cheekbones droop a little bit lower than a younger person's. Maybe, you know, the skin that hangs on his face droops a little bit lower. The lines become more apparent, these smile lines that you see on the corners of his nose. And we're just kind of working our way around the character at this point, just kind of picking and choosing where to bring in the line work. I'm really not following too much of a set pattern at this point. I'm just kind of grabbing lines wherever I see something kind of calling to me. So again, we're going to try and avoid having lines overlap sort of like that. That's just kind of bad craftsmanship. We don't want to do that. So we'll come in here and hit a few of these little lines, creating that crevice in his nose right there. And we'll come over here and maybe touch his eye next. Alright, now I'm going to be really careful with the eyes here just so I can get exactly the shape that I'm looking for. When I drew these, obviously these aren't realistic eyes. They're not almond-shaped eyes. So we're coming in and we're giving him a very much of a heightened expression on his face. So I'm coming in and giving him one very large eye with one really small eye. And we'll come and trace that around. And we'll come in and hit his iris and his pupil. Alright, now we may need to come in and do that one just a little bit, with a little bit smaller brush. We'll go ahead and drop that down to about 3 pixels. Alright, so we're looking pretty good at this point. Now, a lot of these lines, if you remember with this guy, a lot of these lines are just there for reference when we're adding color. Like, I may not come in and ink this line right here. Maybe that's just something I come in and I hit with the color a little bit later on, a little bit darker color to create some shadow in there. A lot of these little pockets, like his eyes, the eye sockets, the upper areas of the eye sockets, maybe his upper lip right here, just areas that would catch either a highlight or shadow, depending on the light source. So we're going to come in and work on his beard a little bit next. Now at this point, in the back of my mind, I'm already starting to think about light source. I think that it's never too early to start thinking about a light source when you're planning on adding color to a character. I think that the sooner you know that, the better, because it's going to allow you to really just be thinking about that and how much, even how much detail is visible. If you're dealing with a character who is in a heavily or a very dramatically lit scene, and there's quite a bit of shadow, you may not need a lot of the detail that you're drawing into the character. So keep that in mind as you're working on a character here. It's really never too early to start considering a light source. So let's come in and hit this brow right here. And we'll come in and work on the curve of his head. Now, he's got a really round head, so I'm going to try and do this with as few lines as I can. I'm going to even rotate my canvas around just a little bit, just so I get a little more comfortable angle at this next curve. I'm going to make those meet up right there. The less strokes you take when you're creating a line, the better it's going to look typically. The less you're going to have to worry about one stroke meeting up with another stroke. So coming in and working on his beard a little bit more next. And we've got these little tufts of hair here. Kind of going with the natural flow of the hair and how that would pattern around these little circular areas around his chin. So thinking about that. And we'll just come in and do the exact same thing on the other side here. Alright, great. So we've got his head pretty much inked the way I'd like it to be inked. So let's go ahead and hide that line work and make sure everything's looking kosher. I think we might have gotten one of his smile lines a little bit long or the other one possibly a little short. So I may come in here and just pull that one down just a little bit more, just so it matches the first one. So we're ready to go ahead and move on to his suit. And the suit, again, not a lot of detail in this suit, as opposed to this guy's right here. There was a lot of ornamentation here that this guy really didn't have. But, you know, that's okay. Maybe this guy is just your average churchgoer or something like that. And no telling what story that we can make up for this guy. Just tracing around the collar for his jacket here. And we'll just, as I'm doing this, I'm also considering how these things are going to overlap. Let me just get rid of that little blob there. Considering how these two pieces of fabric, where they meet, which one is going to overlap. So when I make a line like this and extend it past that first line, it's telling our eye that, hey, this fabric or this piece is on top of this piece. So we'll come in here and make that line down there. And you know, I'm actually reconsidering how I did that, so let's go ahead and redo that here. Let's just erase that, and maybe this line is actually on top. And that way we can match both these sides together. Alright, so we're looking really good here. Let's come down here and bring in some of these lines around his tie. I'm trying not to play too much off these lines in his beard. I don't want them to be confusing with the lines in his shirt. So I'm going to do my best. There's a lot of lines in his beard, so it may be a little more difficult than that, but that's okay. Create sort of those wrinkles in the tie where it bunches up. Alright, so we're, again, doing this really quickly because a really quick, confident stroke is going to be more of a straight line. If we look and hide, say, our rough line work again, you're going to see, for the most part, most of these lines are pretty straight. The quicker you make your strokes, the more confidence is going to be in those strokes. So keep that in mind. Of course, if you're going for more of a shaky line, then feel free to draw it slow. Draw it, draw it as slow as you need to. But for the most part at this stage when we're refining line work, we don't want shaky lines. Alright, looking really good. Just about got this guy complete. And we'll go ahead and hide that rough line work again here. And I think this guy's looking really pretty nice. There's a couple little areas that I may want to just touch on just a little bit. Maybe this area right here around his lip. Just seem to be grabbing my eye. And again, we're again going to create that little crevice in his upper lip right here when we get to color. So it feels a little bare without that rough line work behind it, but I've made a middle note of that. So we'll actually address that during the color stage. So in this lesson, we've refined the line work for our second character, and we're ready to go ahead and begin working on our third character. So in the next lesson, we'll pick up where we're leaving off here, and we'll move on to our third shape.